Hello and welcome to our number talk. Today we're looking at the expression 13 times 16, and what we do in a number talk is we use mental math. That means no paper, no pencil to try to solve this expression, and then we look at all the different strategies we could have used to solve it. So before we go any further, let's go ahead and do that. Pause the video, try to figure out 13 times 16 in your head. When you have your solution, unpause it, we'll look at all of our strategies together. So the first thing we could have done is use the distributive property. And the distributive property lets us break apart. So this is the breaking apart property. We're going to break apart one of our factors. In this case, we're going to take our 16, we're going to break it up using place value. We're going to say that 16 is really a 10 plus 6. And then what we do is we distribute that 13 and multiply it by both addends to get partial products. So we're just going to do two smaller multiplication problems. So instead of 13 times 16, we're going to say 13 times 10. So that's a little bit easier. That's 13 with a 0, 130. And now we're going to do 13 times 6. That's the other addend. So 13 times 6, that is going to get us 78. And so we put together our 130 and our 78. Hopefully you got your answer of 208 or 208. We can also use the distributive property, but instead of breaking up by place value, let's just take our 16, let's just cut that in half. So we're going to take our 13 times 16, and we are going to break up our 16 into an 8 times, or 8 plus 8. We're going to do that same thing. We're going to distribute the 13 out, multiply by both addends to get us partial products. So 13 times 8. So this is one we might need to do in our head a little bit. This is going to be 104. Just because 8 times 10 is 80 and 8 times 3 is 24. Add those two up, you get 104. And then you're going to get another 13 times 8. That's going to be another 104, which brings us back once again to our 208. We've broken up the 16 two different ways. We haven't looked at that 13. So let's go ahead and distribute our 13 into a, let's call it 10 plus 3. Let's use expanded form again. But this time our 16 is going to multiply by both of those addends to make partial products. So it's really going to be 10 times 16. That's going to get you your 160. And then we are going to add that 3 times 16, which 3 times 16 is going to get you 48. Put those together, and we know what we get. It's going to be 208. Doubling and halving is sometimes a really great strategy. You need one of your factors to be even. So we're going to take our 16. What we're going to do is we're going to cut it in half. We're going to divide that by 2. And we're going to get rid of half of our 16, which is just going to leave us with 8. Now, in order to keep a balanced expression, if we cut one of our factors in half, well, guess what we need to do for the other factor? We need to double it. So it's going to be 26. So that's why we've got two sets of 13 here, which is, here's the interesting thing. 13 times 16 is the same thing as 26 times 8. So it's doubling and halving. So we're still going to need to do a little bit of mental math there. 6 times 8 is going to get you 48. 20 times that 8 is going to get you 160. So we're going to add those two. We're still going to get our 208. But it's just a different way of looking at it. And then finally, let's look at the associative property. This is our grouping property. And what the grouping property does is we're going to take our 13 times 16. We're going to break down one of our factors. Now, 13 is prime, so the only way to make 13 is 13 times 1. Not very helpful. But we're going to take our 16, and we're just going to say, you know what, it's really 4 times 4. So right now, I've got 3 different factors, 13 times 4 times 4. What the associative property lets me do is we're going to switch the groups. Instead of grouping the 4 times 4, I want to group the 13 times the 4. Now, the commutative property helps me. This is my order property. Just because right now it says 13 groups of 4, that's a bit weird. I'd rather do 4 groups of 13. So I'm going to just flip the order. So I've got 4 groups of 13 times 4. And to be technically correct, we need to do another order property. I want to get this 4 groups of 13. Just doing another switch. So what does 4 groups of 13 mean? Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 13, which means I need to do 4 times 13. That's going to get me 52. So what I could do now is I could skip count by 52s, because remember, I've got 4 groups of the 4 groups of 13. So if I skip count by 52s 4 times, I've got 104, 156, 208. So those are just a few of the different ways that you can use mental math to solve 13 times 16. If there's another way that you can think of that's awesome, go ahead and drop that as a comment on the video. Teachers, if you would like a copy of this slide deck for your own use in the classroom, you can find it on my website, 5minutemath.net.